Hello. So, if you guys haven't noticed or didn't hear, I did put out an update to Easteria, and the plan is to do a little bit more game dev, but also just do some brainstorming on what's going to be the next step for the actual next update. So, I, for some reason, didn't change the title of the stream, so I'm going to do that like a professional on stream. So brainstorming and skill trees. So, the plan for today, as I just kind of mumbled, is that we're going to talk about one, just generally what is going to be the next kind of few steps in the programming and just general update for the game. Um, I'm gonna start by going over a little bit of what the previous update entails. So there might be some spoilers, so I understand if you want to tune out for those because you want to play the game yourself. But if you already know what they are, then that shouldn't be a problem. Um, and I'll give a heads up before that happens. And then I'm also going to talk about skill trees because that specifically is something that I want to add in soon, or at least get the groundwork in. So that might be something that we can start working on today. At least working on the groundwork because it's going to take a little bit more coding than usual. I don't necessarily have the skeletons in place for the skill trees the way that they're going to be set up. I want them to be fairly self-sufficient in how they interact with the user stats. So for that, it's going to be its own object, so I'll need to do some extra coding on that side. But I think I can piggyback off of the already created obstructions and then just similar to how the fish right now are their own entity in a sense, but that um, they piggyback off of other things. Um, I should be able to work with that. So all of the things in place for printing things to the screen, setting up walls, things like that should be fairly simple, but then the interaction with the character is something that's going to be important in the future. So I got a notification, but as I expected, it's from Twitch telling me that I went live, so that's convenient. So let's start with what happened in the previous update. So I mean, if you look at what's it called, the I don't know what they're talking about in the background, but I hope you can't hear it because it doesn't sound like it's exactly on topic with the stream. Um, so if you read the devlog on Itch.io, then you should be able to pretty easily understand what's new. There's a couple things I can't really remember what exactly wasn't shown in the previous update, but at least in the previous stream, I think we talked about a few things. But one of the big things is one of the kind of convenient things, I guess, is the ability to switch from attack mode to use mode. So that's seen up in the top left corner. There's a little thing that says control, and when you click the control key, it switches so that if you stab, then that stabs, but if you're in use mode, then it is the use animation. So if you had something in your hand, you would be able to use that on whatever might need to be used on. So one of the big things, and this is where we're going to get into the spoiler territory. So if you don't want to know some of the like secret locations on the map or things like that, and you want to find them for yourself, then this is where you'd want to tune out for a few minutes or so. But I'm going to show you where you start the first major quest. Now, what you can do actually, I'll go through the full process of it. If you do this kind of mini quest over here with the wagon, which has been there for a while, then you'll be able to actually talk to the guy, and he'll give you a hint on where things are. So that's assuming that you don't kill him in the process, which a lot of people have done. That's another thing I should mention. I just had one other person do a let's play of the game. They did a quick review. It was about 5 minute long video, or five or 6 minute long video. Um, and so they posted that, and I shared it on my Facebook page. But if you want to check that out, their a YouTube channel is Noisy Duck Plays, all with spaces in between. And I didn't even talk to the guy. So they are. I'm grateful to them for checking out the game. They seemed like they liked it. So if you go through this process and you say ask about the gossip, then he says, I heard there is a magical being who lives in the forest just northwest of here. Reckon it could be true. So if you take a look at the map, then northwest is obviously up and to the left. Now, one, I guess, somewhat confusing thing about this is it's not directly northwest. It's not 45 degrees northwest. But if you just kind of look over in the northwest direction, there's one specific tree that kind of stands out. And so that's what this one over here is. So this one's not actually a tree, and we'll go check that out. So, but like I said, we're going to get into the actual development in a bit. I just wanted to kind of talk about it because I don't really have a huge community, so I realize that it could be somewhat detrimental to gaining a community if people can't figure out how the game works. So I'll leave these hints in case people are trying to research it. So this is the tree that I was talking about. If you look on the map, then there's my little face, and then here's the tree. So if you are directly under it, well, actually I can show you. So if you run into the stump of this tree, you can see that the character goes all the way under the tree. But if you run into the side, you can see that the character kind of gets stuck on the side, and it's a pretty wide trunk, so that kind of stands out. You can't see that visually, but obviously there's a huge circle of trees around that one, so it kind of stands out in the pack compared to a lot of other ones where they're just kind of generally spread out. And so what is interesting is if you run at the bottom of this, it's kind of like the Harry Potter platform 9 3/4 thing. There's actually a doorway there that you can enter. So then there's this guy, and I've shown this on some of my Snapchats and some of my posts on Reddit. But there's this wizard you can talk to, and he's kind of just grooving. But there's a couple different options. I'm not going to go through all of them. But I'm going to accept the quest. If you want to see those dialogue, you can go check out the game for yourself, because that would help me out. But the plan is now. So one of the main things is you need to have one of your stats at 5 to complete this quest. So right now, the easiest is probably just killing a bunch of things. Hey Kinsley, I see you're in the chat. Nice thumbs up. I didn't realize that was a hand for a second. I thought it was some random food object. But yeah, the easiest thing to right now is to just kind of train up your attack, just because the cows come back fairly quick. And you can see, like, if you have the axe, then you hit pretty high numbers. But one of the first things that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change a lot of the attack mechanics because I want to incorporate the attack skill tree first. So the big thing, like I said, for the quest is that you have to get one of your stats to 5. One of the other things that I added in for the last update was buffs. So there's a situation, if you can see my mouse, I think you can, where this area right here next to the control, the little icon that tells you whether you're in attack mode or not, this area right here is where your buffs pop up. And so they pop up and they just have the little symbol of the stat that it's associated with, and also it's either green or red, so it can be a buff or a debuff. So if you have those buffs, then that adds to your stat temporarily until that buff goes away. And so some of them Like if you're drunk, you get a bunch of debuffs, but if you then become if the drunkenness runs off, then those debuffs go away. Whereas there's other things that if you get a buff or a debuff from a random event, then it will um, it will just stick around until something happens that removes your buffs or debuffs. So there's a couple different scenarios. I'm gonna have to like balance things as the game gets more complex, but that's the current scenario. And we're getting a bunch of cows now, so we should be getting to level 5 fairly quickly. I think just one more cow will get us to level 4. There you go. And then it should be a decent little bit to level 5, but we should be hitting pretty hard now. I think. Oh no, I should be able to hit 9s maximum. So one of the big things with skill trees is I'm going to kind of remove the automatic attack raising. So I want it to be the player's choice whether you raise the amount that you hit or the rate at which you hit. Or I think I also have range as an option. Not necessarily range, but like how far you can hit things initially, and then eventually you'll be able to like throw things, use ranged weapons if I end up implementing like bows and arrows into the game. So that's the plan with the attack stat. There's the goal for this is something I've been brainstorming for a while. Is I don't want any particular stat to be independent. I want you to kind of have to like have a combination build, because if you really want to get through the skill tree, then you have to also be getting other things that make sense. So like let's say there's something about like dodging, or I guess that's not really the best example, but I was thinking like if you had agility, I was gonna make it so there's a way to like dodge roll, and I was thinking that if you take kind of the strength route for attack, then you could have an option eventually where the dodge roll would actually do damage if something was in your path. So that's a concept I'm playing around with. And then, but the idea with that is that you'd have to have enough agility to have that skill, and then from then on you would be able to upgrade your attack to then have more damage from your dodge roll. So I'm hoping that eventually the combat will be pretty dynamic in this game, and you'll be able to kind of make your own style as opposed to taking on whatever I'm kind of imposing. But that's just the attack. There's a lot of other stats. I think there's a lot of stats that you guys haven't even seen yet. I mean, if you're somebody that I've talked to particularly closely about the game, then you may know a little bit more than everyone else. But I'm thinking right now, the stats that you know about are, well, obviously health, because that's there. That's one thing. In order to get the attack going, I gotta make it sure you can actually get hurt. So there's health, there's attack. You guys know about, well, I talked about agility, but you've always been able to train agility for a while, because it actually trains if you just sit in the water swimming. So that's something I almost forgot about, to be honest. But then there's charisma, there's luck, and then with the fountain, there's thievery, and craftsmanship, which you've been able to train by cutting down logs. So we're pretty close to level 5, and we'll be able to go down and finish this quest. It's starting to look like a massacre up here. There's been a lot of comments that this game reminds people of RuneScape in a sense, and definitely there's a decent influence. I really enjoyed RuneScape. I really enjoyed the way RuneScape was, and then a lot of changes happened that made things less enjoyable for me. I always enjoy games that let you do what you want with them. So maybe the developer has something particular in mind, but the idea is that I don't want to impose a style of play upon people. I want to have a bunch of different ways that you can play the game and a bunch of different combinations of said ways so that you can easily make the game your own in a sense. So this is the second part of the quest. You come down here and talk to the second wizard, and you just say that you are here to convince him, and since I use the attack stat, I'm going to attack him. Now, once I get the attack to be more dynamic, the fighting to be more dynamic, I am going to have this be a boss battle, like a pretty easy one, but just to kind of introduce you to the idea of a boss battle, because this is kind of the first major quest that people would be pushed towards. Eventually, there's going to be a lot of other things that people can do, so this could end up being like really easy for somebody that's already done a couple things. But yeah, so now there's this portal. It's the nice little animation. But you can come up here, so you're here, and then you go through the portal, and now you're in the fishing village. So that's a big step up from having to walk all this way every time you want to get back and forth. There's a little bit of walking back and forth when you initially start the game, because especially for people who have been beta testing, they just have this inherent desire to go immediately to the fishing village, when it really is kind of important that you start by going up to the wizard, which would require you to do the quest, but a lot of people will ignore that if they've already done it. So it's something that'll get better as the game kind of has more fleshing out. But there's a couple different ways that you can... Oh, horses? What is there any context to that, or are you just saying horses? One of the funny things with the buffs is there's actually a kind of a happy... it's not necessarily a mistake, it just happened, I guess. But I made it so that if you get drunk, you have a charisma buff. And so if you go over here and you... I don't know, can I yell profanities? Why isn't this working? I have attack. Okay, so now I'm drunk, right? You can see all the debuffs I have, but the charisma also has a buff, and it stacks. So every time you drink something, that stacks up. And oh yeah, I know you're debuffed, Kinsley. So there's actually a scenario where if you can manage to stack enough drunkenness and then swim across the lake here all the way over to the wizard, then you can complete the quest without having very high charisma, just by being drunk enough, which I think is amazing. But I'm really happy that happened that way, and that's what I mean by like if I do this correctly, like things are just going to kind of exist that I didn't plan, but if they're bad, then I'll nerf them, and if they're good, then that's just great. So I'm kind of happy with the mentality I'm taking for it. I do have an idea. Kinsley was asking about fast travel, and she was saying horses could be interesting. I do have an idea for fast travel. My thought is that there shouldn't be one particular method of fast travel, so it could be possible that you could like tame animals and use them as mounts. But my plan is that each skill tree itself will have a method of fast travel, with the idea being that like if someone particularly just loved fishing and didn't like any other aspect of the game, that shouldn't stop them from having a fast travel. Like they shouldn't be forced to go through like the attack or the charisma stat in order to get fast travel. So I think that that's something that I want to make sure is part of the game, so that like um, someone that's playing the game however they want, can still access the convenience of leveling a particular stat, without having to level something else, or doing a bunch of really difficult quests. But the other idea is, since the map is going to be massive, the introduction of the wizards kind of, at least initially, will allow for a slight method of fast travel until I get a little bit higher up on the skill tree development. Um, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else other than the skill trees I want to talk about. Um, I the general store. So one of the things that I want to do is I I'm so used to games having M for the map, but for right in the game right now, M is the music. So somewhere over in this blank space, because we have a hotel, we have a bar, and I want to have like a general store. The idea with the general store is that it's somewhere that you can go to, one, get rid of items, because as of right now, items don't despawn, and also you have a fairly limited inventory. So I want you to be able to like sell items, get the money from it, and then purchase little things that you might need, but specifically tools and other bags. So right now, if you look at your bag, you only have 5 slots, and then you have the 2 slots where you can hold things, which might as well just be 2 more slots where you can put anything you want, because you can attack things with anything, and you can just hold something for as long as you want. Um, there's no repercussions of that. But what I want to do is I want to make it so that you can buy a bag, and the bag itself will take up a slot, but it will open up another row for you to use. So like essentially you could have like 4 rows worth of stuff with a 5th row being just bags. And I'm debating, because I could make it so that you could be recursive. So if you can put bags in bags, then I would never need to build more space, in a sense. But I guess I kind of would eventually. But what you could do is, if you had a bag here, then it would open up a row under it that you could access. And then if you access that row, then you can have other bags in there that would open up a next row. And the benefit of this is that I can let you have a lot of space and also organization at the same time, without without having to just have a bunch of things on the screen where you can scroll. So it kind of forces people to organize their inventory, which I feel like is a good thing, but you could also get lost in it, in the sense that like it's hard to find files inside of a bunch of folders sometimes. But that could be a fun aspect as well. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know that that's necessarily the route I'm going to go yet, but that's in the future. I have to make the general store for that even to be applicable. So let's see what we can do today. So what I want to do is I want to get started on the skill tree objects. And so the plan with that is, like I said, they need to be their own object in the program. But what I'm thinking is that, so just to let the cat out of the bag a little bit, the plan is to make them actual trees that you have to plant, which that's an idea that I've been kind of toying around with for a while, but I've always felt like that was the way I was gonna go. So the idea is like in some games you can just access your skill tree from the menu or something. But I don't like that idea. I think it's hilarious because it's called a skill tree that it would be an actual tree somewhere that you have to plant it, and then as you build your skill, the tree itself grows to be like bigger on the map. Um, so and take up more space. So that's the plan. And it's like it's not going to be like a permanent place. You should be able to move it around. But the idea is if you plant it, then you'd have to use all of your points over again and reorganize things. So that could be even a benefit in some cases because I know people like to reorganize their skill trees a lot. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna make it have like a penalty for doing that, but or at least maybe it could be something where like you have to use some shovel or something to dig the tree up, and it costs a lot of money to get the shovel. So then you'd have to like build up money to buy that. I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. Trying to think of where I want to put this in the program itself, because it's kind of gonna be in the menu in a sense, but it's not. It's a type of menu, but it's not something that you can just open up. Um, but I guess we can put it in the menu just for starters. So let's get to the. I don't know if searching menu is gonna do me too much good, but oh, that's all the way at the bottom. Menus. That's nice. Um, if you haven't noticed, uh, this is all one program that's just massive. I know a lot of skilled programmers will split them up into individual function programs that are called, and then that makes things easier to find. But in a sense, it doesn't, because I can search everything all at the same time. So that's kind of nice. Um, but yeah, so the way the menus work is the menu itself is an object. There's a page that uh, there's a page object, so the menu is built up of pages. Each page is built up of sections, and each section is built up of icons. So that's pretty much what it is. And then this has to do with whether or not you pressed a certain key, um, which that's pretty important. So the menu init function is the big one that just checks to see if you're pressing 1, 2, 3, or 4, and then with that you can get through a lot of things. I'm trying to think because there's another thing that I want to do just on a kind of cleaning things up side. I want to add a config menu to the in-game settings, and also to the out settings, outside what I'm talking about, main menu settings. So out here in this settings doesn't do anything right now. So, ooh, something just crashed. I'll have to look into that. It's not a problem when you start up the game, which means it's something that I added, and then I added it to the save. I added it to the save function, but then didn't add it to the load or something. I don't know, but we'll get there in the future. Let's see. I just didn't want to have the music playing in the background while I'm talking. I died. Okay. So, let me see what we got. How long have I've already been recording for 30 minutes. That's crazy. I've just been blabbering the whole time. So here's the items. What I'm thinking is that I'm going to make a new section because we have inventory I'm gonna make a new section that's called skill trees, like under the world map, which I think is the last one. It's the start menu. That's inventory, start menu. This is the in-game settings, and then there's a bunch of achievements. In-game settings. Oh, this is stats. There's your map. So, this is the whole world map, and then this is where it actually begins starting to populate the map. So, I think it would make sense to make this above the map, so that the map just rolls straight into the actual stuff that's on it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make this the skill trees. I think this makes sense to put it right next to the stats. There we go. That's centered. Not that that's too important, but it's nice to make things aesthetically pleasing. So it makes sense that this kind of is rolled into straight from the stats, but the stats are already there, so that should be important. But this one's going to be weird because it's not going to be like a simple menu. It's going to be something that's activated from the environment. So like you going up and interacting with the tree will allow you to access the skill tree. So I guess we'll kind of just start out by making a class. Class skill tree, or take that out. Skill tree self. I don't need that. Def underscore init underscore. Is that how that works? I'm just gonna make sure. Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, here's all the stuff I added for the buff. So right now, anytime, I guess I shouldn't use absolutes. Most of the time when it's checking to see what your stat is, your stat level, it also checks to see if there's any buffs on that. So if, like, say you're talking to the green wizard and you want to use a particular stat on him, if you have level 5, but then you happen to have a debuff in that, then it doesn't let you succeed. Its success is strictly based off of what your temporary level is at. But there's other things like achievements that are absolute based. So they're based off of whatever your stats actually at. Man, I think I'm getting tired. So how we want to start this? I basically want to start this off by just making it also an obstruction. So we're gonna have self dot obstruct is equal to obstruction or obstruct. So I'm gonna need these to be involved. So area x y, and so that's going to be area x y. Don't need that extra parenthesis. Um, all right. So, I mean, that's the base structure, is that it is an object, but it's going to have extra traits that go along with it, and I don't want to have to recode those every single time. Hence the reason for making a class. And the benefit of already having a lot of the structure down is that I can just piggyback off of that. So um, I already have the obstruction taking in the. It's going to handle everything from printing it to the screen to um, keeping track of where it is, walls on it, but those are going to be more standardized because I'm gonna. It would make sense for me to make them all the same size, in particular, based off of how big the skill tree is. But we'll see. Um, so oh god. Uh, um, Other things that we're gonna need to be fed in here. We're gonna need. So we have the area, the X, and the Y, and then we're gonna have to know what kind of skill tree it is. Um, so skill, and then the funny thing about this is I think the way that I'm gonna code it, you'll probably be able to plant the tree inside, which, I mean, I'm just going to let that happen, at least for now. I know that'll probably cause some problems because you could probably, like, plant the tree into a wall. I don't think there'd be any exploits about that, but you could possibly lose your tree. But I guess I'll have to have fail safes in that sense, for if somebody does something stupid. Um, Like if you planted it, I'm trying to think of the weird scenario. So let's say like there's a table, and you try and plant your tree on the table, then it's gonna. I can either have it always be on top of things, which would make it weird, in a sense, if you planted it in the water, but also convenient. Or I can make it just be on the ground level, and then if for whatever reason you planted it in the water, it would be behind it. Like it would be under the water and you wouldn't be able to see it. So that I mean, I guess I should let people plant things in the water if they want to. So I guess skill trees should always be on top. I guess that kind of makes sense in the same way that like the trees in the forest are on top. I should make it so that the skill tree is also on top. Um, so that's probably going to be something important. I don't have any of the artwork done right now, so I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna leave myself a note just saying needs coding for walls and images. So what's gonna need to happen is it's gonna need a trunk, and it's also gonna need a picture of whatever the initial tree looks like. So the idea is that each of the trees should look different, and should be somewhat oriented with whatever skill you have. I don't know if the attack tree is going to be like a tree of knives or something, but I don't know. We'll get there when we get there. Um, Mr. Incredible would be so proud of me. Let's see. So, to be honest, I don't know that there's too much that I can do right now. I'm trying to think. I should make it so that hmm. So the way that this is going to work is if you are instead of it entering a conversation the way that you would normally talk with an object, because that's what happens. The message pops up, and so I can still use the message because that's just normal. Um, but if if the message pops up, then in the message function that I create for the specific object, it's going to need. Ooh, that's gonna be tricky. The way that I check things right now is that I have an individual hand coded function for every single object that I put on the map. But if I'm letting the user put something on the map, then I need to be checking to see if that's happened already. So basically, each area and room is going to need, they're going to need to check, um, they're going to need to check if there is a skill tree in it at all times and then act accordingly. But what I'll do is, since all the skill trees will act the same, is I can make a function here that is self dot I don't need to say self. The function's just going to be message, and then there's self. So what the message is going to do is, if whatever scenario shows the message, so that's the normal scenario, and I can just apply it to the functions that are already there. If that's the case, then it's going to initialize some menu based off of whether or not the user pressed the enter button. So what's gonna happen is, for each of the skills here, we're gonna have like if I have one for attack, then if skill equals, what, it'd have to be 0 because that's the attack skill index. Then if the skill equals 0, then self.ops dot message equals, I'm gonna go grab a message and then copy it from there, because that's a lot easier to do that, because there's all these spaces to get it into the center. Ooh, it's dot append though. That's important. Okay. So you collected some logs. Okay. I actually don't have this up on the screen, but I don't think it's too important. I have a little character limit check, so it checks to see if it's gonna fit in the screen, and also it checks it allows me to center things. Um, it's nothing new. I've seen people use this before, but it's just a note. I can actually aim the screen at it. It's just a notepad thing, like a text file. So I'm getting Facebook messages. So what it's gonna say is interact with skill So in this case, it's going to say attack skill tree, and then enter. I'm going to put a question mark, and then I'll space it out so it goes to the R, I think, or at least it's close. So the benefit of this is I can do this, and you can see that this space is automatically in there. I put those spaces in, but I was able to measure to see if that's going to be in the center of the little message box. So basically what I'm doing is based off of what skill this tree is oriented with, then you can have a particular message, and so that's going to be the same for a lot of different things. Like the image is going to be specific, and I don't know if the walls are going to be specific. I think it would make sense to just have like one central log that's just always there. So I can probably just copy that straight from the trees, because I can make it standard. It's probably just like a circle of some like 5 radius or something. I don't know what's going on with my voice today. I'm squeaking. Let's see, I think we're down to 1 viewer now, and it might be me. No, it still says 2 viewers. I don't know. If you're in the chat, or if you have an account on Twitch, feel free to enter the chat and let me know you're here, because that's a little more fun if I know who I'm talking to. But yeah, so we'll put something down here, self dot obst dot walls dot append and then I don't know how big this is gonna have to be, but I think with offsets it shouldn't be a problem. So if I keep updating the offsets of the X and the Y, then I can keep the wall in the middle, and that's not a problem. So we're gonna do wall append circ wall, and then the build is gonna be this obstruction. What that does is it just feeds it the X and Y coordinates, and then we need to we need to give it that feeds it the origin X and Y coordinates, but we need to give it the coordinates from the origin, which is actually 0, 0 in this case, and then we want it to be outwards, and that should be it. So what that's going to do is wherever it is, it's going to make a wall. Yeah, I might have to leave a lot of this for the future. There's some things that I don't necessarily want to show on stream, like other skills that haven't been implemented in the game yet. But I also need to do some of the artwork for the trees so that I can start testing things. Because I don't necessarily have to make it immediately to where you can plant it. I could just have it somewhere on the map. I see Mudakov asking if I have a GitHub. At the moment, I don't. I haven't shared the actual source code other than just showing it on stream. But if that's something people are interested in, I might look into that. But I will warn you that my code is a mess. I'm self-taught, so a lot of it is disgusting. But yeah, that's something that I might look into in the future. So for those of you that don't know, GitHub is just a way that you can share code for people. That's it's kind of easy to share the formats of files. So yeah, so the way that I have this set up, there's a lot that I don't necessarily want to show on stream, just because it's content that hasn't been shown in the game yet. But this is the general concept. I'm building this class in order to add the skill trees into the game, and eventually, what's going to happen is you'll be able to receive the skill tree. I don't know if that's something that will just happen from you reaching like level 5 or something, or if you'll have to go like get the skill tree from something, which I feel like that'd be somewhat annoying. Um, I don't know if that's something that I could just make it like available at the general store for free, or if it'll be some like event that happens when you reach level 5. Um, or maybe I could even incorporate the wizards into that, because that would actually make sense, and then it'd be easier because they'd all be connected through the fast travel, so you could jump back and forth. But yeah, so I don't think I'm gonna do too much more on the stream today, um, just because for some whatever reason I'm extremely tired right now, and looking at the screen isn't helping. But I also kind of just need to get the ball rolling, and in order to do that, I'd probably have to just kind of sit down and knock a bunch of stuff out. So once that's happening, I'll definitely stream some more, just because once the ball's rolling, then um, I can I'll know where my thoughts are going, and I'll be able to just kind of talk my way through it instead of fumbling around while I'm talking. So with that, I'm gonna sign off. I don't know if there's any last questions. I know I saw Mudikov in the chat room, so I don't know if you have any questions before I sign off. But if you are interested in playing the game, it should be in the description, I think, down below my my channel. I'll check that. Um, yeah, yeah. There's oh, it's playing me. Um, I paused it. What's going on? Yeah. So you can go check out. It says version 1.2.1. It's actually version 1.2.2, but that's not a big deal. I can edit that right now while I'm talking here. Um, so yeah, so that's where you can find the game. You can find it just by searching Easteria on Itch.io or on Game Jolt, although nobody has downloaded it from Game Jolt yet. So you could be the first. That'd be great. But other than that, I think I'm done with today's stream. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.